Well, just to say there's a very active agenda today on the Foreign Affairs Council, beginning with a presentation from the IAEA in terms of nuclear safety in the nuclear plants in Ukraine, and looking forward to Director General Grozny's presentation to us at breakfast. Significant discussions on the Middle East, and we'll have presentations from the Palestinian Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. Obviously, significant debate on Ukraine, new tranche of the peace facility. Looking forward to the communication and presentation from Foreign Minister Kaluba in respect of the up-to-date position there. And obviously then discussions on Iran, Afghanistan, and quite a number of other issues also.
Taoiseach, do you think that Germany should permit the export of battle tanks to Ukraine? There's been a lot of debate last week and over the weekend. It looks like from your colleague Annalena Baerbock's intervention last night that they won't stand in the way of other countries. But I mean, just from what you know of the conflict and how important it is to give Ukraine the firepower before a potential spring offensive by Russia, do you think it's time that such weaponry was sent to Ukraine?
Well, to be fair, I think Germany has been a very strong supporter of Ukraine and continues to be one of the most significant supporters of Ukraine, along with the United States and the United Kingdom and France and others, and I think that has to be acknowledged. And it's a matter fundamentally for the German government, but I do believe the German government is working with other governments, and these issues I think will be resolved in due course, and there's a lot of engagement going on. So it's a matter for the judgment of the German government.
Just on that issue, Ireland has consistently offered support, but non-lethal because of our neutral status. But in the light of the debate we've had on the Ukraine war, given that this isn't two combatants who went to war with each other, is there not a moral argument now for setting the neutrality issue to one side and giving Ukraine more lethal support? It's not simply that these are two countries that went to war with each other, and Ireland is neutral in that regard. This is a different kind of conflict.
Well, we're not neutral in terms of the war, in the sense that this is an invasion, it's an act of aggression which contravenes the United Nations Charter and is causing immense harm and death and destruction to the people of Ukraine. There's two issues here. Military neutrality is an issue, and it's not something that can be just put to one side. But also we don't have capacity militarily, let's be honest about that, and that is also a key factor. So we focused in on where we can be of the greatest assistance, both in terms of the political side, where we were one of the leaders in terms of supporting Ukraine's application to join the European Union. Secondly, in terms of accountability and bringing accountability for Russian aggression. And we're working with other countries in terms of an interim court at The Hague to bring Russia to accountability insofar as we can, and other mechanisms internationally around accountability. Ireland has been very strongly supportive of. The humanitarian dimension is key also, and we've played a very strong role in that in terms of the number of Ukrainians who've come to Ireland for shelter and for refuge from a terrible war. And also then in terms of facilitating the European Peace Facility, where we've been strong supporters in facilitating that, which I think has been the most significant input from the European Union in respect of contribution to both military and non-lethal supports to Ukraine.
Taoiseach, if I could, you're meeting the Palestinian Prime Minister later today. Do you back the call for Israel to pay compensation for the destroyed aid that was given to help Palestinians?
I do indeed. I don't think it's acceptable that on an ongoing basis the European Union is contributing very significant aid to Palestinians and to Palestinian infrastructure for it to be habitually destroyed then, and there should be recompense when that happens. And we also believe that the ongoing settlement issue, and particularly Nasser Arafat, is not acceptable in terms of the mass expulsion of people, essentially. And that is, in our view, unacceptable from a humanitarian perspective. It's provocative and in our view is not conducive to developing a process that could ultimately lead to a two-state solution. And Ireland has been consistently in favour of a two-state solution, but the facts on the ground now are making that very difficult.
And is the support there among the other EU member states for the EU to formally request that compensation?
Well, as you know, there's a fragmented position within the EU 27 in respect of the Middle East peace process and in respect of the Israeli-Palestinian issue. And but we will work with others to see what we can do to put pressure on in respect of that specific issue, and then more broadly in respect of a moderate approach to moving in a realistic and genuine way towards a two-state solution.
Just on the Northern Ireland Protocol, things have gone pretty quiet. What's your latest understanding of the talks that are going on?
Well, I think the issues are challenging, and I think the engagement is important. I think we all welcome the fact that the EU negotiating team and the United Kingdom's negotiating team have been engaging and continue to engage on the issue, and we would hope that those negotiations would be successful, but they are very challenging, both for the UK government and for the European Union side. So I've never understated the challenges that face them, but the important aspect of this is that they are talking. And I do believe there should be allowed space to continue the negotiations.
Do you think they're getting close, though?
So you used the phrase quiet. In terms of negotiations, that's no bad thing. So I'm not going to add to any commentary other than to say that it's good that there's engagement.
And can I ask, we're coming towards the second anniversary of Brexit. Looking ahead to the relationship between the UK and the EU, how do you see that evolving? Do you think it will become closer? What would you like to see?
I would like to see it become stronger and closer because of the huge geopolitical issues facing the world and Europe and the United Kingdom. So the war in Ukraine is one such clear issue where there's been a strong alliance between the United Kingdom's approach and the European Union's. The energy crisis, the migration crisis, the hunger crisis now across the world. So all of that demands, in my view, very strong harmony between the United Kingdom and the European Union, along with the United States and other like-minded democracies, and indeed other regions across the world. And that is why, in my view, it's imperative that we resolve the issues around UK-EU trade and the protocol. And also then in terms of developing the British-Irish relationship, also, we had a very good meeting last week with the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Chris Heaton-Harris, and his team, and Minister Graham Roberts, and discussing issues around energy and indeed cyber security. So one of the more substantive British-Irish intergovernmental conferences, which is an institution under the Good Friday Agreement, and we want to see that develop more strongly. And so a lot does rest on resolving the issue around the protocol, but the issues are very big now facing the world and very, very challenging. And that is why I believe it's important that we have constructive, harmonious relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union.
And can I quickly, just add very briefly, could you ever see, some people in the UK want to see Britain obviously rejoin the European Union, maybe the single market or the customs union. Could you ever see that actually happening?
Well, again, I think that the decision has been taken by the British people. My sense of, in my engagement with all British politicians, is that they've accepted that decision. They're working on that decision. So I think the context, I don't see that context arriving back anytime soon. So we've got to deal with the realities on the ground now. Brexit has happened. So we have to create, the relationships now have to be based on that reality.
Can I just ask you about the CAMS report on mental health and children?
I think it's unacceptable, very, very concerning, and I think there has to be, and is an ongoing review in terms of what has happened, but also that every child, and the HSE has said they've engaged with every child that was not catered for adequately by the CAMS service. But also I think we have to look at governance issues again in respect of the mental health services. A lot of investment has gone in over the last decade or so. There's been significant investment in child and adolescent centres. The numbers going forward for treatment has increased very significantly. The referrals have increased very significantly. But still, no child should be lost in the system. So there's very serious issues. And I know the Minister is very focused on that. And I think the reviews have highlighted that now.
Taoiseach, this seems to be just one part of a much bigger issue with mental health care in Ireland. I mean, if someone's having a mental health crisis. They often the only help they can possibly get is to go into an overcrowded emergency department, which is completely inappropriate in terms of care. We only have 3 publicly funded anorexia beds. I mean, don't you think that this is unacceptable? And what has gone wrong? I mean, you're a former health minister for Taoiseach. What has gone wrong here?
I think there's been historic issues around mental health. This is in particular areas. And I haven't seen the detail of this report yet, but there is indications that it's focusing on specific areas. In terms of some specialist areas, there has been progress in certain areas, certainly in terms of where we were and where we've come from. And also, there has to be a stronger focus on primary care and community-based mental health care. Historically, Irish mental health care was too institutionalised, and there was a certain tardiness in moving towards more primary and community care-based models. Too much emphasis on acute care within mental health. We've made a lot of progress in 20 years compared to where we were as a country in respect of mental health, but clearly not good enough in respect of the report that has just been published.
You better go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Thanks.